All right, put your hands together for the fourth storyteller of the second half, Jim Breslin, everybody.
So I'm 16 years old and I'm sitting in the living room of my parents' house. It's my mother, my father, and this executive director of a Canadian wilderness canoe camp in Canada. And he's trying to talk my parents into shipping me up to Canada. And my dad and mom are pretty much into it and trying to urge me to do it because I've been rather a troublemaker in the past year and they want to get me out of the house for the summer. And so this guy's showing us gorgeous photos of this island in the middle of a giant lake and just explaining how it's such a beautiful camp for kids to spend the summer. And we're just finished and my father says, Jim, do you have any questions? And I'm like, well, how about the food? Is it, and he, how's the food there? And he goes, when you're in camp, there's all you can eat. And technically he was correct. But the thing is, I'm up there for a month, and for 2 weeks of that, me and 8 other guys and 2 leaders are in a canoe traveling like 200 miles away from the camp. And while we're in camp, yeah, there's plenty of great food in this mess hall. But for this 2-week trip, we're carrying all the food we're going to be eating. And we're carrying the food. We have our canoes and our duffel bags, and they have these giant wooden things called a wanigan, which is like a cooler, but it's bigger, and it's made of like plywood, and it has a cloth strap on it. And how you carry a wanigan is basically you try to set it up on a rock or something, and then you bend down away from it, and you take the strap on your head, and you hoist it up like that. And this thing is fucking heavy. and after 2 days, we realized wanigan is the Indian word for son of a bitch, right? And that's what's carrying our food. And so we go out on the trail and we're canoeing across these beautiful giant lakes, and all we're talking about, starting like the second and third day, is food. Because basically we eat this oatmeal type mush in the morning, have this bannock bread, which is like cement, that we make at nighttime with some kind of thing that smells like cat food, out of a can, like Dinny Moore leftovers, terrible. And so we're all starving. And by the second day, me and my canoe mate, Eric, were paddling, and he's telling me about his mother's short ribs. He's in Michigan, and how she makes the most delectable short ribs. And I'm saying, well, my mom makes this macaroni and cheese that is to die for, and I just can't get enough of it. And we're talking about, if you were standing at Wendy's right now, what would you get? I'd get a Frosty. And what would you get if you were at Burger King right now? Well, I'd get a Whopper with cheese, a double Whopper. And we're just, and all we're doing is talking about food and whining. And I swear on that day, we're on this giant lake, and ahead of me, I see the far distance, I see the woods behind it, and I swear what at first I think is a rainbow, and then I'm like, that's the Golden Arches. But it wasn't, it was a mirage. And the next day we're again canoeing and paddling and talking about food, and all of a sudden it turns really dark, really gray, and it just starts downpouring. And I mean, it's coming down in buckets. And we instinctively reach for our duffel bags and like my rain poncho's deep in there. And I had this awakening moment, like, by the time I dig it out, I'm gonna be totally drenched. And does it really fucking matter? Because I'm in the woods for 2 weeks. It's not like I'm going to church or, and there's any girls around, and it really doesn't matter. And I think we all like kind of had this moment, like, this doesn't matter. Nobody grabbed the rain ponchos, they just stopped. And we just, it was like a major awakening. It doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter. And it was a very clear moment for us that we stopped whining. We still talked about food for the next 10 days and stuff, but we didn't whine like we did before. We had something special had happened there during that rainstorm, and we realized like this is an amazing adventure we're on. And when we did finish up, we were like 250 miles from camp, and we got picked up in these vans, and I was with the 15 and 16-year-old kids, and they had already picked up some other 17 and 18-year-old kids from their trip. And we were in these vans with the canoes behind us, and they stopped in this little town, and we were like boys gone wild, like Lord of the Flies. And everybody was taking their cash and going to the McDonald's and getting quarter pounders and cheeseburgers and supersizing their fries. And we're in the grocery store, kids are walking out with groceries for 4 people, you know? And I remember climbing into the van totally exhausted and my stomach just burgeoning, and a 17-year-old behind me is like drinking a beer that, you know, he'd gotten, and he's just like laughing. He's drinking a whole 6-pack of beer, and I look out the window and there's a kid kvetching on the sidewalk, just spewing all over the place. And it was an amazing moment to be back in civilization after these 2 weeks. But what I learned from it was that hunger on the road. I came back, I had lost 25 pounds in that month, and it was great. But what I ended up coming home with was a different kind of hunger. A hunger for the wilderness, a hungerness to be out there that I then started learning, took really seriously, skiing and snowboarding and mountain biking and hiking. And it's something that really changed my life that summer and has made a difference in my life. Thanks.